Hello Tim and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pitts, the Ukraine War Frontline update for the 3rd of December 2023. And if you don't know what the lines on my map mean, please pause the video to check out the key. Otherwise, let's go straight to the video. I am straight to the frontline. I'm not going to do a massively in-depth one. Most of you will probably be like, yay, finally. I just am under time constraints. So we're going to miss out really, and I'm not going to go to the ISW to look at the granular detail. We're going to go first of all to the area, the sector just north of the, I guess, the salient that the Russians gained west of Crimea here. And as you can see, in fact, all around this whole area, there's a mixed bag of nuts. The Russians supposedly have made some gains north of the salient towards Yampolivka, Torska, Zarichna here. The Surrey map says that the Russian army continue advancing towards Terny, have recaptured some of the positions lost during the last hours. They show some pretty sizable gains around here, Surrey maps, and I don't know whether this is a kind of walking back rather than the Russians actually making a counterattack. It's quite difficult to know with Surat maps sometimes, but nonetheless, a bit of a mixed bag there with the Russians gaining towards Yampolivka and the Ukrainians possibly counterattacking just north of there, represented on my map like this, thanks to JR, who's done the mapping today. Again, a legend. So yeah, that's taking place there. We'll keep an eye on that. It seems fairly active around there at the moment. And also active to the south of that salient in the Serebyansky forest, both around Dubrova and then deeper into the forest. So Andrew Perpetua has some gains for the Ukrainians there. He doesn't like doing too many map changes in the forest. It's quite difficult to get geolocations there because of the canopy of the trees. Nonetheless, he has shown some gains for the Ukrainians in that area. Also, Global War Monitor saying here that in the Crimea forest area on the Donetsk Oblast side, Ukraine has advanced towards Dubrova, as seen by geolocated footage of them assaulting a nearby Russian position. Now, if you look at the shapes of the forest there, you can get a kind of idea of where this is taking place. So it's in this particular area, and I'm not sure that it shows a great amount of Ukrainian gain. It's possibly more into the grey zone than actually into Russian-controlled area. But it is interesting. I mean, it does show a much smaller Russian salient here, just in general. And it could well be that this area, the Russians have been forced back a little bit by the Ukrainians. But I think the overall idea is that the Ukrainians are pushing in a number of areas around here, possibly in the forest, possibly in the northern part of the forest by Dubrova, and north of the Terny attack by the Russians here. So lots going on while the Russians are also making gains there. Sorry about the noises. A family are around and whatnot with young children too. Okay, now we're going to go further to the south towards Bakhmut. And we can see that there are some gains for the Russians, as according to Andrew Perpetua, just again by these water features, these ponds or reservoirs near the railway line. The Russians have been pushing the Ukrainians back towards the railway line, towards Klishchivka. So it's a bit of a grey zone there now. The Russians have, it appears, something of an initiative around there, some momentum around there, and also to the north, as we know, near Bodanivka and Bakivka, although no changes there today, which is good. Hopefully that's been stabilized as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, but some pressure to the south of Bakhmut there. We're going to come on now to Avdiivka, where, as you can see, the Deep State map, pro-Ukrainian mapper, has some gains for the Russians to the south, around the Opitny area, around the quarry, where Surat maps had some large gains over the last few days, actually right around this whole area, north of Vodyanye towards Siverny, north of the quarry and sort of northeast of the quarry too. Well, Deep State map may be catching up a little bit with that. But there's a lot of activity going on around the Stepova area. You can see Andrew Perpetua agreeing that some of Stepova is under Russian control, so they've pushed into the eastern outskirts of that settlement, as well as a few things going on around here. So Deep State maps having some, I think that's the wrong color there, unfortunately, some gains for the Russians around this tree line, as well as Suryat maps pushing down this tree line, and Andrew Perpetua showing that, it might not be as far down this tree line as the other mappers, but the Russians have made some gains there. So that's between Stepova and the coke plant there. So we'll look at some of the sources here. Avdiivka, no report says particularly of this area. The video showed showed the 2 Ukrainian soldiers surrendering a position southeast of Stepova confirms Russian control over that particular geolocated area, although the exact date of the footage cannot be determined. It's in line with events surrounding Stepova. This is that war crime that I've talked about a lot, happened basically in this area where the Russians surrounded a dugout, 2 Ukrainians surrendered, came out, their hands up, one of them was laying down, and then both of them got executed. That appears to be in this area, although there were claims from the Ukrainians that they retook that area afterwards, but that could have been trying to manage the PR of that incident. So it's not reflected on the mappers here, and it comes as a mere assertion by the Ukrainians. Anyway, slightly worrying that the Russians are having some success towards Stepova, because that then leads to more easily surrounding or just surrounding the coke plant to the north, and more easily being able to interdict this main supply route coming in to Avdiivka from the west. If they get success up here at Stepova towards Berdichi, then it allows the Russians to really operationally encircle the Ukrainians here. As I'll get my little draw on a page tool. So, if they can do that and have that kind of salient there, the cauldron becomes deeper and deeper, the neck more and more vulnerable, with this main supply route able to be interdicted with far greater ease, and indeed further back towards Orlivka. So this is a real concern for the Ukrainians. Many people, Andrew Perpetua, myself to some degree, saying the writing is somewhat on the wall for the Ukrainians in Avdiivka. Might be a game of how long they can last there, unless the Ukrainians commit to a really meaningful counter attack in the north, probably around Novobakhmativka or somewhere around here, pushing the Russians back. But at what cost? Is that a worthwhile use of their resources, personnel, equipment, so on and so forth? Suryat maps talks about this area here that the Ukrainians putting out of Stepova, as according to them, the Russians captured new positions south of Stepova. The pressures forced the Ukrainian army to withdraw from the village, which is now contested. Again, Suryat map saying Barracuda here, saying Russian forces are increasing their military presence in the Stepova region, and then geolocating lots of stuff around there. Russian soldiers capture Ukrainian position along the railway north of Stepova. And lots of pins in their map to suggest that things are really tough in that area. There's a lot of activity at Stepova, but also north of the settlement 2 in this area as well. So then we go on to deep state map. So we're going to come out of Avdiivka. Just as you can well imagine, it is difficult around there and getting gradually more difficult. We come to Mariinka here, where we have what JR's usually put a pin here saying CDSM. I think it's easier to work out what's going on here by looking at the changes to the deep state map. So we'll do that. This is the deep state map of Mariinka as of the 21st of November, and we're going to go forward in time, and basically it stayed like this, and I could have gone back a long time. It was static lines, and then we get up to the 30th of November, so only 3 days ago, and you have a sizable chunk of Mariinka taken by the Russians here. Now, remember, at that time, Suryat maps suddenly had the whole of Mariinka taken because of that flag that was positioned there. And that was then kind of walked back, or at least not by Suryats, by other Russian sources saying that was not true. A bit of a PR stunt, arguably. As we go forward, the next day, we then have slightly more more land taken in the western outskirts of Mariinka here, in the southern part of that. But actually, I don't know whether that's a counterattack to the north or rejigging of the map, but you can see that the Russian defensive line is then suddenly pushed back at the same time as they gain some ground to the south of the water feature. So that is why it's easier to show it on this map rather than sort of talk about it with my map. No changes according to Surat maps. They're sticking with the Russians controlling the whole of Mariinka. Andrew Perpetua sticking with his more conservative estimate there. We'll see how that turns out. But yeah, just thought we'd dip into a bit of deep state map in the area, even though I don't normally use deep state map for Mariinka. And then we come on down past Vuhledar, past the Velikonova Silka sector, and then onto Robotina, where Andrew Perpetua has some gains for the Ukrainians towards Kopani. This is the one area really where, well, I say the one area, there was activity north of Verbove where the Ukrainians were having some success, but that seems to have stopped there. They are struggling, I think, to make further ground towards Novoprokopivka into the settlement itself. I think it's well defended by the Russians, and obviously they can use basements and buildings there to help their defense. But towards Kopani, the Ukrainians are still having some success, still grinding out a few meters here and there. So that's good for them in that area. But yeah, possibly more positional in general. And then we come on down to the Dnipro River area and Krinky, and it seems to be much of the same, which is that the Russians are struggling to kick the Ukrainians out of their bridgeheads in the area, but likewise the Ukrainians are struggling to increase the area of control, to expand their bridgeheads. And as I've said, I think that's a worry. Some people are saying it's not too much of a worry as long as they are maintaining the ratios of attrition to the Russian soldiers at a beneficial level. It's difficult to know whether they are definitely doing that. We can listen to kind of rumors, sources, things coming out from the Russians indicate that things are very difficult for the Russians here. They are losing troops. They are finding it difficult to operate in the air with regard to drones. They are finding counter-battery fire difficult in the area. So things are tough for the Russians, but that's not to say that it's easy for the Ukrainians. I don't quite know what to make of this PLCR 11 claim. Left bank in the Pishchanivka area, the ZSU landing force, so the Ukrainians landing force, was met and was forced to retreat. We will be back and showing a little bit of a video there. So that might indicate that the Ukrainians are finding it tough in the Pishchanivka area. I don't know whether that means they've retreated from their bridgehead there, or whether it's just a subsequent attack that was repelled. So yeah, it is tough around this area, and I would hope that Ukraine can capitalize. The Russians are, it appears, sending quite a bit, or as much as they can, to defend this area from further Ukrainian gains here. We'll see. Right, that's as I say, much quicker one from me today. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate all your support. I'm going to get on and sort out what I'm going to talk to Mark and Olena about in my live stream in less than 2 hours. So nothing like a bit of last minute homework. Sorry, Mark and Olena. It's been one of those crazy weekends. Take care, everybody, and speak relatively soon.